Alright, as promised today we're going to try to start going through the project that's in the book. What I'd like you to do, very similar to what we did yesterday, is make a folder out on your desktop. I called mine Sports Store Project. Doesn't really matter that much what you call that one. Alright, so like I said, something like Sports Store Project. And then inside of there, create another folder that is just called, bless you, that's called Sports Store. All right, Sports Store is one word. That is the name of the project that gets created, all right, in chapters 7 through 11. So again, I called my outside folder Sports Store Project, and I call the inner folder just Sports Store. Questions on that? All right, I'm assuming that everybody can do that without any problem. All right, so then, as we did yesterday, go into github.com/new, and we are going to create a new repository right here. And we are going to call it Sports Store. All right. Again, we're going to do steps very similar to what we did yesterday. The description is, let's see, mimicking, I gotta figure out how to spell that, the project in textbook Pro ASP.NET MVC 5 chapters 7 through 12. Okay, on mimicking, I don't know. Is that better? Yep. Again, we're setting this up pretty much the same way we set things up yesterday. All right. We are going to make this a private repository. Okay. We will initialize it with a README file. We will add gitignore, and again, we'll put in here, as we did yesterday, Visual Studio. Go. All right, so again, your stuff should be set up. I created a new repository, called it Sports Store, one word. All right. For a description, I put mimicking the project in textbook Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, Chapter 7 through 12. It is private. We are creating a README. And for the gitignore, I put the Visual Studio stuff in there. If you've got all that, then please click the Create Repository button that's there. That should create the repository. There it is. All right. And again, as we did yesterday, now we're going to click the button as you go down here. It's a little bit down from the top that says clone or download. All right. Once you have clicked that, again, click the clipboard right here, so we've got that. All right. Minimize your screen. Open up your Sports Store project file. All right. Right mouse click, same stuff we did yesterday, and type in git bash here. And we're going to type in, just again, pretty much the same way we did it yesterday. That is, we're going to put in here git clone and then paste in what you just copied. So that's mine. Yours, of course, won't be JP Scott Rankin. Yes, sir. Yeah, there is a clone in there too. The only thing is sometimes it doesn't work. All right, that was the, I don't know if you saw that there was an option on there when we brought this up that said git clone. Oh, that's not what you meant. Okay, go ahead then. I don't know. It might. If you want to try it, go ahead. All right. All right. Now, as we get started, just a couple things to tell you. All right. First thing, and I did mention this the other day, I'm saying it again, I'm going to ask that you at least attempt in chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 to do the unit tests that are in there. That will necessitate you going back to page 137, which is chapter 6, and reading about 7 or 8 pages on unit testing. And he uses the unit testing with the Visual Studio tools, which is good, because then we don't have to add anything else in order to be able to use those. All right, so I'm going to ask that at least you try to do that. All right. So here we are, Chapter 7, Sports Store, a real application. Not my goal in here to sit and read to you out of this. This is meant to be a watered-down, real ASP.NET MVC5 application. Now, when we're going through it, creating it, etc., you might think, well, this is kind of stupid. That's your right. All right. The unit testing, again, he says that he's made a big thing out of unit testing throughout the book earlier, and he will have you create a unit test folder, and then he says, but some people don't believe in it, so for lack of better words, the old whatever floats your boat. All right. Now, many of the features that he will talk about throughout this project, he discusses in more detail later in the book. In other words, after chapter 13. We will go over some of that stuff. For most of the chapters that are in the book, most of them that are in the book after chapter 13, he has little mini projects. All right, not all of them, and we're not going to do every one because, again, my goal is to sit there and give you as much of this stuff as I think you can handle and as I can handle in 18 weeks. I don't see where there's a lot of great value to saying, okay, this week we're going to go over chapters 15 and 16. I'm going to lecture all week. No, I think you learn more by doing, all right, than you do by listening. All right. So what we are told to do, this is going to look doggone familiar to you, is to start up Visual Studio. We are going to create a new project once that comes up. Much like we did yesterday, you can go into the search area here and type in blank because we want a blank solution. All right, and don't worry, it will change very, very quickly. But we want a blank solution. All right. Click Next. We do want to call this Sports Store. And of course, we want to make sure that we save it right where we just set all the stuff up. So I've got desktop, and underneath desktop, I've got Sports Store Project. So that's where I want to save this. All right. So that's how everything should look when you've got it done. Again, yours is probably not see users, rank, and desktop, but you get what hopefully you get what I'm saying. All right. Have the project name and set the location. Okay. Then click Create. As you know, then, what that's going to do is that is going to create for us, all right, that is going to create for us an empty project. We are going to, I'm sorry, it's an empty solution. We are going to put 3 projects in there. The way the author of this book kind of separates them is he has one project that's just set up for unit tests, all right, one project that's just set up basically for the user interface stuff, and one project that's set up for mainly for model information, business logic, etc. All right. So again, oops, we are following what the author has here. So we just created that. We called it Sports Store. All right, and this is what he wants us to do then, to create 3 projects. Now, just because it'll make it easier, especially if you're doing copying, etc., to use his names. So please look up on the screen here. You will create 3 different projects. Those are the names: Sports Store, period, domain, Sports Store, period, web UI, Sports Store, period, unit tests. Okay? And he tells you how to create each one of these. So let's go through that. All right? So the first one, we want to right mouse click. I'm just going to do them in the order that that he has them here. All right, so I'm right mouse clicking on here, choosing Add, New Project. All right, so what we want from here, we want to do a class library, but I want to see, well, what's available. Class library. All right. Please make sure that when you do this, if you look in here, you don't want to choose Visual Basic and you don't want to choose .NET Core. We want this one, which is a class library, .NET Framework, C#. What Visual Studio will allow you to do is to kind of mix and match Visual Basic, .NET, and C#. Don't do that, because we're not doing anything in here for Visual Basic. All right. So again, I'm going to choose that one in the .NET Framework right there. And usually when I do it, I just double click on it, and so notice it made class library. I'm going to change the name then to Sports Store .domain. All right. You can already see the location. And if you look, I'll come right back to it, but if you look here, when we create this, all right, when we create this, there will be a file that'll be created in there for us automatically called, I think it's class1.cs. We're not going to use that, so we can remove that file right away. All right, so this is the first one. So, whoops, that was good. So again, as we come in here, okay, we've got Sports Store, period, domain, the location, etc. Okay, it's a class library file or class library project, and click Create. That creates the first one. We want to keep the properties. We want to keep the references. We don't need this class 1 file. So if yours open like mine did, just close it, right mouse click, and choose Delete. Everybody get that? That is the first of our 3 projects that we're going to create. All right? Questions? Problems? Then let's do the second one. All right? So I'm going to again right mouse click on my solution, and I'm going to choose Add, New Project, and I want this to be our ASP.NET web application .NET Framework for C#. You can see where my mouse is. Again, you can always go up in the search bar up here and type that in, or if you've created enough projects, they'll probably will appear in there. Again, please make sure .NET Framework, not .NET Core. Please make sure C#, not Visual Basic. All right, so again, I'm going to double click on this. All right. Okay. And this one we're supposed to call sportsstore.webui. All right. And again, if you say, well, do I have to follow all of his conventions? Do I have to name everything, etc.? No. But when he does copies and he's got code in here, you might run into problems if you don't. That's all. All right? So, as it says, what we're going to put in here is a web application. We're going to choose empty and choose the MVC option. So click Create if you've gotten to here. empty, and choose the MVC option. Empty with MVC. All right, and click Create. You already know what this does. There's nothing new here for anybody. All right, so that created this for us. So now we have two of our 3 projects in here. So we will now create the last one. So again, I'm going to right mouse click on the name of my project, choose Add. I'm going to right mouse click on the name of my solution, choose Add New Project, and in here, all right, Unit Test, and I want to choose the Unit Test project.NET Framework and the one for C#. We only have to do what we're doing right now. We only have to do this once. And this is setting up, basically, for lack of better words, our folder structure, whatever you want to call it. Now, we'll put stuff under some of these different folders, but setting up the main structure, this is the only time we should have to do this. All right? This one we are supposed to call sportsstore.unit tests. Click Create, and then after we do, we should have our 3 different projects in here. All right, I'm going to close this stuff in here on unit tests. Okay, for right now, I'm not going to work on it, but you see the 3 projects. Again, hopefully at least that's exactly what you have right now. All right, again, I don't want to belittle any of this stuff too much. The author does say in here that he always uses empty, so you have total control over what goes in there. Again, we're going to start working on yet a different project next week, and when we do, we'll choose MVC, and we'll have a lot of that code written for us. All right. Now, a couple things. If you look on the screen, the author says to make debugging easier, right-click on your web UI project and select Startup Project from the pop-up menu. All right. Well, that's web UI is right here. I'm right mouse clicking. And if you look almost halfway down, it says Set as Startup Project, which when you think about it, that should make sense. All right. We're not telling it what file to run or anything. We're just telling it that by default, this is our startup project. And again, make sure the one that you've chosen is sportsstore.webui. Right mouse click, about halfway down, set as startup project. Questions? All right. Nothing magical happens when you do that. You don't get even really any response back from the system. And it says Visual Studio will try to navigate to view individual files while you're editing them. So what that means in English, this paragraph that you see up on the screen right here, by default, for instance, if I am in a page that's called edit.cshtml and I run the program, the system will automatically bring up that page. Does that make sense? So it'll run it based on that page. So if I'm under my, let's say, just say I'm under something called cart, and under cart I've got edit, it'll automatically then run cart edit. All right? And the author says, rather than doing that, what we're going to do, all right, is we're going to come in. This is a little bit different. We're going to click on Project right here, up on our menu. We're going to click on Project, and the second one from the bottom, right there, says Sports Store UI Properties. And if you click right there, it's going to bring this up. Let me take my stuff on the sides here and narrow it down so you can see everything that's coming up there. There we go. These are basically the way that you can set up system properties. All right? So the author says, click on Web. All right? And it says, select the specific page option right here. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to give it a page. What that is supposed to do by default is when you run the program, it'll automatically run from your home controller the index method. That's what it does by default. So in other words, you're going to have to iterate your way over if you want to go someplace else. If you've done that, just click the X up here. There's no save, there's no anything. Okay? You just made it leave, for lack of better words. All right. Next, the author says that he's going to use Ninject and mock. With what he uses, we're going to be putting in some code, and at times I'm not going to give you any explanation other than you got to put it in there to make this thing work. And if that's a crummy explanation, sorry, that's the one I'm going to give you. But we're going to need to install some stuff here. So let me do this. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. What I'd recommend you do is go to Tools, go to NuGet Package Manager, and go to Package Manager Console. So Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Package Manager Console. And remember, once you do that and click, it'll bring it up here someplace. There is mine. There it is. Okay? Now, I'm going to grab those files and I'm going to put them up here. I'll do mine, but I'll let you do all yours first. If you don't have the book, you're going to have to type this. Again, if you don't have the book, must pause. Programming. All right. So again, either with your copy this stuff, or key it in. We are using some of this stuff, some of the stuff that's in here is older than what I'd like to use. But when I did the project, I used everything he did, thinking, well, probably it won't fail then. And guess what? It didn't. 158.
We can't just paste it all in as a block. We have to do line by line.
I pasted it in as a block. The only thing, John's question was, can you paste this in as a block? Or do you have to do it line by line? Two things. Number one, I pasted it in as a block. No problem. When you do get to the last one, you may have to hit enter again. And if for some reason, let's say you didn't copy it, you just keyed it all in or whatever, and you made a mistake, I don't know what it's going to do if it finds an error in one of these. But I've done this twice, and it's worked both times. And I suppose if I don't want to have to hit enter at the end, I can hit enter now. And when I copy it, I can just copy that new line. Right? So you'll notice if you look here, the first 6 out of 10 are all Ninject things. We didn't do much with Ninject, but what we're going to end up doing in here is rather than writing a lot of code that directly affects something, we're going to end up writing some interfaces which indirectly affect it. And Ninject is all about interfaces. All right? If I would have, what I started to do this summer was I started to try to strip off stuff I didn't think we'd need. So I thought, well, we probably don't need this, we probably don't need this, and then stuff just stopped working. All right? The next 2 things that are in here deal with mock. All right? Not going into mock at all. The last 2 are important. And that is, to my knowledge, still the newest version, or the version we want to use, of MVC 5.0. All right? So we want to make that stuff available, and look at the two folders we're making it available to. If you look up on the screen at what's gray, the one we're not choosing is sportstore.webui. It's already in there. Now, just to be sure, and I'll come right back to this, I'm going to go and take mine and try to run it in here, see if it gave me any errors. All right, so I'm literally just going to paste it in to the package manager. There it goes. And it gave me the prompt back. So when I look up here and I just work my way back, everything is black in text, which means basically there were no errors in there. Is anyone still keying this in, or can I go on? Hearing no one answer, I'm going to go on.
I copied and pasted it. I went into the notepad when I pasted it, and I just entered the lines after the calendar the other out.
That is true, as far as it does expect, this isn't one big line, because you don't have a semicolon or anything at the end. So that would make it not work. All right. Again, I am on the bottom of page 158, and the author says here, I need to set up dependencies between projects and to some Microsoft assemblies. Right-click on each project in the Solution Explorer window, select Add References, and add the references shown. Okay, so we're going to do that next. Now, look on the screen, please. When I did it, at least, for the Sports Story unit, one of these, okay, I think it was the Sports Story unit test. It says Assemblies, References. I went to add these. They were already in there. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. All right? But I'm just going to take them again one at a time, just as the author has done. All right? So I'm going to, they start with a domain, fine. I'm going to right mouse click on the domain, and the author says after you right mouse click, okay, it says select add references. So add reference. All right. I'm doing it right from the top. So the one they do them in order. So the domain one. It really probably wouldn't matter the order in which you do them. All right. So I right mouse clicked on the project sportstore.domain. Chose add and chose reference. All right. When I do that, it brings up this window. All right. So it says you're going to want to choose either extensions, all right, or solution sections. All right. Let's just look at extensions for right now. And it says there are none. Okay, I can handle that. And then it says assembly references. All right. So assembly, these are, I believe, the references. So I'm going to look in here for system dot component model dot data annotations. System dot component model dot data annotations. This is a Microsoft product. So if you'd say, does that mean it works weird? In my opinion, it does. Because notice what happens. If I take my mouse and put it there, now I get the box. See that? And now I can check the box. All right? That made what's in there available to my project. All right? It's like putting a super using statement in there, for lack of better words. If I did it too fast, all right, I'm going to click OK, but we'll look at it again. I right mouse clicked on the domain here, chose Add, chose Reference. All right, these are our references. We had no solution dependencies, so I just kept going down in here until I found system.componentModel.data annotations. Right there. Maybe I used the wrong one. I don't know.
Does it matter when all those things are checked?
No.
Okay.
There's a bunch of stuff that gets checked by default for you. All right, so system.componentModel.data annotations, and then click OK. So that's the first one. Second one, they want us to then go to the web UI. All right, I guess they didn't do them in alphabetic order. All right, so let's do the web UI second. Right mouse click, choose Add, choose Reference, and it says here, solution dependencies, we want sportstore.domain. Sportstore.domain. Try that again. All right. Now, when I click shared projects, that's where I found sportstore.domain. All right. So I went to projects, and that's where I found this. There's not a lot of instructions here on how to do it. I think that's correct. All right, so it comes up and it looks like this. I clicked on projects and then clicked here. All right, then I clicked OK. Now, went back and did it again. I suppose you don't have to do it twice like I did it, but add reference. And it says for the assembly references, well, I guess there are none in this one. All right, but if we did want to add them, we'd go look in here. All right. Then finally, right mouse click on your unit test. Again, add. Again, reference. All right. These solution dependencies, so again, I'm clicking on project, and I check this. It says domain and web UI. All right. But under assemblies, if you look on the screen, it told you to do system.web. And now it's not checked. That's weird because mine was checked when I did it. And it says to do Microsoft.C#. All right, so we did three things. We went to projects, and we made sure that was checked. Then under assemblies, we made sure that Microsoft C# and system.web were both checked. If you've done that, click OK.
Just to check web UI too.
That one didn't have them both in there under the projects? I thought they were both listed there. Let's look. Oh, you're right. Thank you. Yep, click them both. My error. So click this one and this one. Okay, so again, right mouse click on sportstore.unittests. All right, click projects, check both of these, then go to Assemblies and make sure that System.web and Microsoft.C# are both chosen. Thank you. Problems? Questions? Now, according to this, now we've done all that. Take time to set these up properly. If you don't, you'll get into trouble when you're trying to build the project. Okay? All right. So the next thing that we're doing here, one of the reasons that I did give you tests, written tests earlier, was so that when I asked you what dependency injection was, you'd at least have to look it up. That said, if I right now said, okay, this is a test for 100 points, what's dependency injection? Chances are pretty good most people would fail it. All right? But what we are going to end up doing, for lack of better words, is rather than creating a lot of classes that have to talk with one another, we will be creating some classes, and then we will create interfaces that will talk to them. All right, so you help. One of the reasons that you use this dependency injection is because you want to loosen, all right, you want to have loosely coupled modules. You want to make sure if you change A, that B, that if B is out there, B should depend on A as little as possible. All right, maybe that's not a great explanation, but it's the one you're getting. All right, so the author says, I showed you how to use Ninject to create dependency resolver that the framework will use to instantiate objects across the application. I'm going to repeat that process, starting with adding. So what we want to do, first thing, we want to go underneath the web sportstore.web UI folder, create another folder called infrastructure. I'll give this guy credit. He does an excellent job of really laying things out. When we go through our other project that we'll do as a class, starting next week, you'll say, yeah, Jeff, he did it a hell of a lot better than you did. I'm trying to show you what I consider to be the easiest way. Rather than having a bunch of projects and folders under here and folders under here, ours is going to be more compact, which may make it easier, or depending on your point of view, may make it more complex. All right, so we want this infrastructure folder under Web UI. So there's Web UI. Okay, there's the project. We are told just to right mouse click on the project, not under models, not under anything. So I'm going to right mouse click on the project name and choose add and choose new folder and name that folder infrastructure, because that's what the author tells us to do. All right. You'll notice it's not under models, it's not under anything. It's standing alone out here. All right. And then what we're supposed to do in that folder is to add a new class that's called Ninject Dependency Resolver. All right. I'll show it to you in the book in just a second. So I'm going to right mouse click, add class. Again, this is Ninject Dependency Resolver. All right, which creates this. Then in the book on page 159, the author says, go in there and replace all the code that came with it with this code. And just in case you are following me and you have to key it in yourselves, I'll leave this up here for a minute. I don't know why he didn't show this, but let's see. Oh. All right, so I'll just leave that up there. Again, otherwise, it is page 159 in the book. And then what he says down at the bottom of the page, as you may recall from Chapter 6, the next step is to create a bridge between this resolver class and the MVC support or dependency injection. So that's what we will do in just a minute. Again, this is on page 159 in the book. Let's do this, and when we get done, we will add a couple of lines into our Ninject web common.cs file, as the author does, and then we'll take a break. We're probably going to go less in here because this, I mean, it may not seem intense, but it's intense enough. Now, I don't hear people tapping away, so I'm taking for granted that everybody's got that. All right. So again, going back into the text, it says, as you may recall from Chapter 6, again, the next step is to create that bridge. Okay? So under app start, there should be a file called Ninject web common.cs. Let's look. All right, under app start, there is Ninject web common.cs. All right, so I'm going to open that file, and as the author shows then on the next page, in the register services, they want you to add this. And again, if you're typing it in yourself, well, I guess I can't make it that big. That's about as big as I can make it. All right. So under the register services, there it is. The author asks you to put in that. Right here. Also on the top of page 160. Remember, they say this thing is a bridge, and it's saying the bridge that we're going to use is something that's under the Sports Store, Web UI, Infrastructure folder, and it's called Ninject Dependency Resolver. That's the method we just that is the class we just created underneath there. Now, the author mentions next, I'm not going to do it because it's kind of silly. Right now, if we went to run the application, it wouldn't work. And the reason it wouldn't work is if you take a look, all we have under views is web.config. We have no .cs HTML file. So yeah, I could run it. We get the resource not found or cannot be found error that you see there. All right. It is 120. Let's just try to keep this 130, please, and we'll pick it up there on the bottom of page 160, starting the domain model.